And we are gathered here this morning on Wednesday, January 11th for our Board of County Commissioners zoning meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Baxter?
Here.
Commissioner Bernard? Commissioner Marino?
Here.
Vice Mayor Sacks? Here. Mayor Weiss?
Here.
Commissioner Woodward?
Here.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we're going to have Commissioner Baxter lead us in our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, thank you for gathering us here today. Please watch over this meeting. Please stay with us. Please guide us, our decisions, and help them to honor you in everything you do. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do we have proof of has notice been given?
Yes.
And we have proof of publication?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion to receive and file, second by the Vice Mayor. Anybody opposed? That carries unanimously, 6-0. Okay. I'll ask our attorney if you're planning to speak. This is quasi judicial, so if you're planning to speak in front of the board today, we ask that you be sworn in.
Everyone planning to speak, please rise. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the truth?
So help you God.
So help you God.
Yes.
Yes.
We all needed a laugh.
Good morning.
All right. Are there any amendments to the agenda today?
Yes, we have an amendment to item number 7, 2022-0485 Southern Industrial. We have a modification to site design condition number 1 that's on your amendments to the agenda. I also have another condition that I need to read into the record for item number 5, public storage, 2021-1652. It's on page 13 of the staff report, and it is Exhibit C1, site design condition number 6. We have extra verbiage where we say shall be provided multiple times. So,
Pick it up a little.
here it is. Prior to final approval by the development review officer, the applicant shall provide a regulating plan to show a minimum of 50% of the usable open space being shaded by landscape material or shade structures.
Great. All right. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Moving backwards. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Marino, a second by Commissioner Baxter. All in favor, all opposed. That motion carries 6-0. All right. Do we have any postponements, remands, or withdrawals?
No.
Thank you. All right. Before moving on to our consent agenda, 2 things I'd like to do. One is to ask our county attorney if you can just advise, what a zoning hearing is and what we're here to do today.
Sure. So just to remind everybody, a zoning hearing is what's called a quasi-judicial proceeding, which means that the decisions that are made here today have to be based on what is called competent and substantial evidence. And so that's why it's almost in the type of a trial, although it's not a trial, as the former rules of evidence don't apply. But your decision is to be based on the information that's been presented to you here today. Which includes the testimony, the staff reports, the presentations. And if you make a decision either to approve or to deny an application, you need to, for a denial, you need to cite what reasons it is that you're denying it for, based on the standards that are supposed to apply to each application.
Thank you very much. All right, and then, since we have new folks, and specifically, we have a new commissioner, joined us yesterday, Commissioner Barnett. If you all could introduce yourselves and your positions, so he gets to learn who everybody is here, and remind us all, so.
Okay, I'll start. I'm Wendy Hernandez, and I'm the Deputy Zoning Director.
And my name is Lisa Mara. I am the new zoning director for the past year and a half, and I'm going to cling to that new name for quite a while.
I'm Scott Cantor. I'm the Director of Land Development. It's a division of Engineering and Public Works.
Hi, good morning. Kevin Fisher, the Planning Director, and I can out new Lisa as I have even less time in the role. So.
Good morning. I'm Quasi Bari. I'm in the Engineering Department, Traffic Division.
Thank you all. Appreciate that. Okay. Would anybody like to pull anything off the consent agenda? Okay. With that, would somebody like to make a motion? Oh, yeah, we have disclosures on consent. All right. We will start, make it easy. We'll start with Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you, Mayor. For item number 2, I do have disclosures. I did speak with Mr. Cliff Hertz and Kevin Reddery. I do have correspondence to receive and file.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. In item number 2, Whitworth, I have disclosures of Cliff Hertz and Kevin Rattery. For number 3, John Glades West, I have Scott Backman. And for number 6, no disclosures beyond that. I have correspondence as well.
You have correspondence. Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Marino.
I only have one disclosure, consent item number 2. I met with Cliff Hertz and Kevin Rattery.
Thank you. Commissioner Baxter?
On item 2, written communication, we received a copy of a letter we had from Stephen Wallace's office to Mr. Haynes. Verbal communication, yes. My staff and I met with Clifford Hertz and Kevin Rattier. Forgive the pronunciation. Site visit, no. Item 3, no written. Yes, we had verbal with Scott Backman. And then number 7, yes, I spoke on the phone with Josh Nichols.
Okay, so that will be on our regular agenda, so we'll come back to that one.
Okay.
Okay, no worries. All right, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. On the consent agenda for item number 2, with Whitworth, I had verbal communication, meeting with Kevin Rattier and Cliff Hertz, and I had a telephone conference with Steve Wallace. Receive and file a presentation packet, written correspondence, and an email. Item number 3, John Glades West, verbal communications, meeting with Scott Backman. And that completes it.
Thank you very much. And on my own disclosure on consent agenda, item number 2, I had verbal communication with Kevin Rattery and Cliff Hertz, and we received an email on that as well. Okay, disclosures are out of the way. Now we can move on to, are there any public comment on the consent?
Item 7 is the only one I have.
Okay. All right, so seeing none, we'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve consent agenda.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Marino. We have a second from Commissioner Woodward. All in favor? All opposed? Consent agenda carries unanimously 6-0. Very good, thank you. Moving on, we are moving on to item number 7 on our regular agenda.
Yes. So item number 7 is called Southern Boulevard Industrial Center. It's item number ZBDOA-CAW 2022-00485. The request before the board is a development order amendment as well as a Class A conditional use. The site is just shy of 7 acres. Staff is recommending approval, and we can turn it over to the applicant for a presentation at the will of the board and then staff.
Okay. Would you like a presentation?
No, I wouldn't.
I think we need a presentation.
Well, you know what?
Okay, Commissioner Baxter, we would like a brief can you make we'll have a presentation.
I will go quickly. For the record, Josh Nichols with Schmidt Nichols, agent for the applicant. So again, I know that you do have a card, so we can make sure we go through, but I'll keep it brief. We have done a lot of work with the Pioneer Homeowners Association and Mr. Hickey, who's the president there. So we actually were able to receive a letter of approval and support from those folks. So anyway, I'll keep it brief. Like I said, so we do have a development order amendment. So there was previously 87,000 square feet, give or take, approved on this project. And we are amending the conditional overlay zone, as well as a Class A conditional use for anything above 100,000 square feet for industrial requires that conditional use. So those are our two main requests. We had December 1st Zoning Commission unanimous approval. So again, the site's located on the north side of Southern Boulevard, just west of Jog Road, in between Cleary and Jog there. It's currently, sorry, I should have mentioned, it's currently industrial land use and industrially zoned. So again, like I mentioned, there is a previous approval for industrial on the site. This is a quick look at the site plan. We're just over 100,000 at about 102. And it's a mix of warehouse and accessory office. As you can see, we have the passenger vehicle parking on the west side of the building and the loading on the east side. There is no truck access. I think this was an important part for the Pioneer folks, that there's no truck access off of Southern Boulevard. It all comes off of Wallace. So quickly go through that. This is the plan of record, just to show what was approved on the site. So we're modifying that. This was going to be more small bay warehousing. This is a larger scale, high volume, it would be called. And Duke, who was just purchased by Prologis, is the owner and would be the builder of this. And they have obviously national tenants. So we get a good product and good tenant mix in there. Again, future land use of commercial high with underlying industrial, so it's consistent between the zoning and land use. And this is a slide that I just had in from the Zoning Commission hearing to show there was concerns about the distance to residential. And so not only are we separated by a 220-foot right-of-way, but we have a 64-foot dedication of right-of-way that we have to give. There's also a 225-foot canal. So we're over 600 feet from the nearest residential. Having said that, we still wanted to make sure that they were comfortable. There was a concern about the backup beeping of the vehicles and stuff, so we said we would take care of that, and there's conditions of approval to reflect that. Here's two of the other, it's kind of off the screen a little bit over there, but one of the conditions was the screen wall, so that it would extend from the building out 130 feet to the east, and that would screen the loading and the maneuvering area for the loading, so that would help with the sound, and it would also have sound attenuation panels on the inside of the wall. So that was one of the conditions added. The other condition was relating to sound as well, and that was that the backup beeping had to extinguish at 10 p.m. And then beyond that, whatever they had to use for OSHA requirement, whatever those regulations are, they could use. We understand there may be a laser sensor program that they can use, so that's something that we're looking into. But 10 o'clock, that beeping would have to extinguish. And then the last items were related to landscape. So we did a 3-foot berm along Southern Boulevard frontage with landscaping with a 6-foot hedge on the top of that berm. So that would help to screen that. And then on the west boundary, as you see highlighted, that was a 6-foot hedge adjacent to the FDOT parcel. So again, really kind of capturing any of that sound that could bounce out of the site. So again, I won't go through all these. These are the staff report analysis. They are recommending approval. We're in agreement with the conditions. And again, with that, happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Good morning. Briefly, are there other trucks in the area that beep when they back up?
So this is primarily an industrial area that has a lot of truck parking and other industrial uses. So they probably are, yes.
So they are the only property that would be held to that standard?
Yes, as of right now that I know of, yes.
I would love to see this go forward. The only thing I would like to see it go forward without the beeping condition in there. I just think it seems unnecessarily burdensome to the truck drivers. You've gone above and beyond with a wall, access off of Wallace so on and so forth. I don't think we need to add another burden to the area when there is other beeping that already exists.
Appreciate that. That'd be-
Thank you. Commissioner Marino, you recognize.
Hi, can you pull the slide back up that showed the other businesses to the east and the west? Yeah, east and west.
I guess that's probably the most zoomed in view.
Okay, can you zoom out a little?
I think I'd have to go, does that show what you're looking for?
Yeah, I'm trying to
Let me see if there's a better.
look at Sarah's
There we go.
look at Sarah's concerns to see if there really are
So that was one.
frontage along Southern Boulevard and the backing up off of Southern Boulevard or from Wallace. So I just wanted to know the actual, is it light industrial, is it commercial, is it commerce that's surrounding it? Because I know that you've already agreed to the condition. It's easy enough for us to take it in, pull it out or keep it in. But I just wanted to know what other entities along that way have trucks that might be backing up after. I mean, this is a 24-hour operation. The other ones may not be in operation that late. Now, that might be why the condition of approval is in place.
And just if I could add to that, so that was where I think where the 10 o'clock came from is because this property is separated enough from residential that any of the properties along this strip on the north side could all operate 24/7. So we didn't want to take that away. So it was kind of a happy medium there, but we're happy either way.
Go ahead.
All right. Let me just say, the neighborhood which I represent agreed to provide their support based on this condition. So I think if this condition were to be removed, I would ask that this item be postponed so that they would have an opportunity to come in and respond. So I believe, and I appreciate the fact that you all worked together to come up with mitigation. This is, as you said, this is planned to be a 24-hour operation.
Correct.
You know, during the day, there's traffic on Southern Boulevard, but in the evening, it's pretty quiet out there. And this is to protect their peace and allow them to have the enjoyment of their property. So I would not support this condition being removed. So, Commissioner Sachs, you're recognized.
I always go with the recommendation of the district commissioner. And this district falls within the mayor's domain. And these are his constituents. I believe that this item was removed from the consent agenda to regular agenda so that folks from the area could speak about it, either in support or opposition. And what they did speak about was this cessation of beeping noises after 10 p.m. So I honor that, I respect that, and I will go with whatever the district commissioner wishes to do on an item in his district.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodward, you're recognized.
Yes, I just wanted to know, was this condition agreed upon because of conversations with the neighbors, or was this something that we as the board put on? Did this, I guess I wanted to know the origin of where this came from. Was this in conversation with the neighbors and you were happy to concede, or did
Yeah.
we force this?
This came up through the zoning commission hearing. So when we started talking about the hours of operation, that it would be 24/7, it was offered up by the zoning commission, well, could we look at limiting that to 10 p.m. for the beeping? And then there was several neighbors at the meeting as well, and they were on board. So then we kind of tweaked that condition language as we move forward
So
to
there
get to
was
here.
public comment at the zoning meeting
Absolutely.
about this, and
Absolutely,
this is
yes.
where this discussion came from.
Mhm.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we didn't just arbitrarily do this. This came from the neighbors.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized again.
If this is what the mayor wants, definitely for it. I wouldn't want to, I was just trying to point out it could be unnecessarily burdensome to potential truck drivers that don't currently have a say in this, and just pointing out some obvious things. But absolutely, I will support whatever our district leader wants.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, I don't see any other lights. We have a public comment.
Do we want a presentation from staff?
Do we need a presentation from staff?
I don't.
Okay, none's required. Okay, let's move to public comment. Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you. We have one public comment card from Ned Kerr.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ned Kerr. I live at 348 Possum Pass in West Palm Beach, across the canal, obviously, from the industrial property. I put down support initially because we have no objection to the industrial zoning and the industrial use, and moving the trucks to Wallace is a great idea, and Josh Nichols has been very helpful and communicative and talking to us. And I assume you all got the letter from Dennis from the thing. But the 24/7 is the objection. That's the biggest objection. This thing does not belong a 24/7 operation in this location because it's too close to commercial. 24/7 belongs in an industrial park where there's nothing around it that'll be affected by whatever noises they decide to make. So this is maybe light industrial, but it's kind of pushing the envelope in our opinion, because that's the biggest concern that we have. The other concern is the property immediately to the east, which is owned by the DOT, and I believe it's a water detention parcel, which will never be developed. And the noise wall that we did on Southern Boulevard is a great deal, and we appreciate that. If there was a way they could move it up around the corner a little bit somehow, or do something to mitigate that, would be really ideal, because that sound is always going to come across there no matter what, because it'll never be developed. And you know how sound goes across water. 600 feet doesn't mean anything when there's nothing there to block the noise at all. So our biggest objection, not to the industrial use, but simply to the 24/7 operation and the noise that it creates. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, I don't see any lights lit. With that, it comes back to the board. Did we
did not do
disclosure
disclosures
on
yet.
this? We need to do disclosure on this item. All right, so we will start at this time with Commissioner Baxter.
Once again, I spoke, item number 7, I spoke with Josh Nichols.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. On item number 7, I received and filed emails.
Thank you. Commissioner Marino.
Item number 7, I received and filed emails from residents.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodward.
Item number 7, received and filed emails.
Thank you. And Commissioner Barnett.
Not had any communication, nothing to receive or file.
Thank you. My own disclosure, my staff spoke with Josh Nichols and residents of the Pioneer Road neighborhood. We received email correspondence on this, and those will be filed with the clerk. All right, so disclosure's been made. It comes back to the board. So we need a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving a development order amendment to reconfigure the site plan, and adopt a resolution approving a Class A conditional use.
We have a motion from Commissioner Marino, a second by Vice Mayor Sachs. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? This motion carries 6-0 unanimously. All right. Moving on. Item number 8.
Item number 8, this is under our Unified Land Development Code modifications. What we're requesting is for permission to advertise for our January 26th zoning hearing for first reading, and then final adoption will be in the future in February. So this item has to do with electric vehicle charging stations. This is a Phase 1 amendment of the proposed changes. The amendment involves modifications to Article 1 4, and 6, in which we are modifying and relocating language to our definition section for electric vehicle charging stations. We're removing electric vehicle charging stations as a use in itself, and relocating and editing language in Article 6. And this is to allow for electric charging areas to be easier to receive building permits for, make the process easier, not require it to go through a board approval or a DRO approval just to have the charging. So this doesn't mandate it, it still leaves it as optional, but the modifications to those sections, we're hoping to make it easier to allow for people to have charging for these electric vehicles. As a side, there is a workshop item on February 28th at 10:30 to discuss some additional phasing as it relates to our county-owned buildings for FDO. So that is on the 28th as a workshop item for electric vehicles as well.
Thank
So
you.
we're-
And I
our
think
motion
just
is to approve it.
And just to clarify, this is permission to advertise.
Correct.
So we're not taking any action specifically on this item other than making the public aware that we are going to be hearing it.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So I make a
Any
motion to
questions?
approve a request for permission to advertise.
So we have okay. Let me get the motion. So we have a motion from Commissioner Marino to moves to permission to advertise. Do we have a second? We have a second from Vice Mayor Sachs. Now, moving on to Commissioner or Vice Mayor Sachs, your comments, please.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I love the idea, and let's go for it. We're getting into the 21st century. Palm Beach is leading the way. Thank you very much for this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Sachs. Any further comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed, this motion carries 6-0 unanimously. All right, moving on. Item number 9.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So this item, number 9, is called Residential Future Land Use Designations. This stems from comprehensive plan amendments that we adopted in 2018 on Halloween. It was held up and delayed a little bit because there was a challenge from a resident in the Pioneer Road Neighborhood Association. But eventually we worked through the litigation and now we're here. The bulk of this item will remove prohibitions to agriculture in the urban-suburban tier. That graphic shows the urban-suburban tier along the coast in kind of an orange and a red. Since the 90s, there was language saying that agriculture shouldn't be allowed in this area because it should urbanize. But when we did the managed growth tier system, which is that map, the tier system recognized that there's rural enclaves, there's areas just like Pioneer Road that we just saw a minute ago, where people have 5-acre lots, 2-acre lots, and they should be afforded the same type of opportunities for agriculture or livestock on an acre up as there is in the acreage and such. So that's part of this amendment. Another part is all of the AR properties, like yesterday afternoon, we had a lot of conversation on AR. There's 30,000 AR properties in the county, and almost all of them are non-conforming because when we did the code in 1992, we established there was a 5-acre minimum lot size. However, we know that the bulk of the AR properties are not 5 acres. They're mostly between 1 and 2 acres. So what this does is it makes legally subdivided AR lots legal, and it sets up new setbacks and such that are appropriate for those lots. We're hoping that this helps out in the acreage in Jupiter Farms when people need to put in a shed or with their base building line and their setback. They're going to have rules that are much more consistent with the pattern of their neighborhood. I think that covers kind of everything, is those two topic areas. And again, we will be back with all of these items on the 26th for first reading, and then again on the February 23rd for second reading. All of them require 2 additional hearings. And we're going to, for all of these items, we're going to the Land Use Advisory Board. No, not the Land Use Advisory Board. LDRAB and LDRC. I can't remember the acronym, honestly. What is the acronym for LDRAB?
Land Development Regulation Advisory Board, LDRAB.
Yes. We will be there Tuesday with this batch of items and an additional public hearing where the public can come out and our advisory body can weigh in on the contents. So that's number 9.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions for staff? Seeing none,
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve a request
we have
to advertise.
We have a motion from Commissioner Marino and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Okay, and we have a comment from Commissioner Sacks.
I think this is excellent, again, just so full of compliments for all of you. This is very proactive, so that what occurred yesterday and will not have to be duplicated again, because now we're looking at a viable agricultural classification, and this also is consistent with what's going on in the legislature with the right to farm. Also, in places like Horseshoe Acres along the Ag Reserve, this is something that is what the people want, what the state of Florida wants, and just shows, again, we're being very proactive. Thank you to staff.
Okay. Any further comments? Commissioner Woodward, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I thank you for putting forth this effort. It looks good, and hopefully it's a start with maybe a few other things after the conversations we had yesterday, but this is fantastic, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, no further comments. We have a motion. All in favor? All opposed? This motion also carries 6-0. Okay, moving on to item number 10.
And item number 10 is another ULDC amendment, and this is an amendment to our land development regulations that also stemmed from comprehensive plan amendments. Unlike the other one that was adopted in 2018, this was just adopted, it seems like a minute ago. And we've been working very closely with the planning division to come up with the rules in the code for the new commerce future land use designation. And there's two pieces of this in the plan, one the regular commerce and one for the ag reserve. The code amendment pretty much is just the standard language for commerce as a future land use designation. And the big thing that it does is it distinguishes between light industrial uses and heavy industrial uses. This is something that's been in the comp plan since 1989, but it never fully made its way through into the land development regulations. So that's where we are with that. And it also, something that we did with the text amendment to the plan is we identified which commercial uses would be appropriate in this commerce designation. And again, the idea is that, and if we can go, Phil, to the next slide. Yeah, there's, as the reason that we started talking about having a new light industrial future land use designation is because some industrial uses are quite popular and everybody likes them, well, most people, such as light office warehouse type of uses. They're high employment, they can be compatible next to residential. Often the smaller office warehouse, they're pro-business. So those are the kinds of things that commerce would allow. However, commerce wouldn't allow the more intense uses. Distribution facilities, no. Heavy industry, anything toxic, flammable, noisy, loud. The comp plan defines more specifically those type of uses, and so what we're just putting it in here. This does broaden a little bit fitness centers and industrial bays. However, some of the commercial uses, as shown on the next slide, are not allowed right now by the comp plan, so with the new language we just adopted, so this reflects that only a handful of commercial uses will be allowed in commerce. We do see dispatch and landscape service. They're more of like an industrial-esque type of use. They're more commercial vehicles, so we would see those appropriate in commerce. And that was one of the things that a couple of the applicants with the landscape service struggled with the landscape code. So you can apply for the commerce flu on a major roadway throughout the county now, and you can do your landscape service through the future land use process. So there was some dialogue yesterday about landscape service, but this will help to some extent some of those non-residential but non-commercial, high trip generating type of high turnover things. So that's the idea behind this one. And again, we'll go to LDRC, and we'll be back here again twice. Yeah, and Kevin has some things to talk about, and he has a different slideshow.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Morning.
All right, so as Lisa mentioned, it seems like this Commerce Future Land Use Designation was just adopted, but it was actually adopted at the August 25th Board of County Commissioner hearing. The first actual site-specific, because at that time that was just adding the text into the comprehensive plan. Then there were 5 requests that were heard before the board in November. There was a significant amount of discussion with the board members about, and the public, about what are the potential ultimate square footages that could be developed throughout the agricultural reserve. So before we get to the point where those are back for adoption, I just wanted to get ahead of that, bring this back up, and seek if the board wants to direct, because as you know, any changes to the comprehensive plan text requires initiation by the board. So if the board wanted to initiate, we could come back with more specifics, but I did want to run through a couple options real quick. And real quickly, in doing a rough assessment of the tier, looking at the location requirements, the size of 3 to 50 acres, excluding properties within the agricultural reserve that already have a commercial use or are preserved parcels, various metrics. There's approximately 315 acres worth of land that we identified that could potentially request the future land use. Of course, we don't expect all of them will, but that is just an assessment. At the 0.45 FAR, that would lead to approximately 5.82 million square feet. What we've seen with the amendment requests that have come in so far is it's more in the realm of average of about a 0.3 FAR, again, floor area ratio, which would equate to approximately 3.88 million square feet. So the potential options to the board, the first is to maintain the language as it stands in the comprehensive plan today, recognizing that on site-by-site basis, the board can always, by condition of approval, limit the square footage to less than the maximum. You've seen that on a number of residential amendments where the future land use may allow for X number of units, but a lower number is included as a condition of approval. So that's one option to the board. As you know, in the agricultural reserve, there is a square footage cap for commercial, and that is at 1,015,000 square feet. And the third option would be I'm going to go to the next slide briefly. So there's a table in the comprehensive plan that lays out what the maximum allowable floor area ratio is for each, I know it's hard to read, I apologize, for each future land use designation. What you see circled there is commerce in the agricultural reserve is 0.45. There are a number of situations with other future land use designations where there is a range of floor area ratios. So if the board wanted to say, okay, properties west of State Road 7, close to environmentally sensitive lands, we don't feel that 0.45 is appropriate, we could have a range and then add a note at the bottom of the table. You'll see there's already a dozen notes. That's also a mechanism that could be explored. So if the board does initiate, we'll come back with the typical analysis and detail, but at this stage, I just wanted to get a sense from the board if there was consensus on requesting any modifications.
All right. Any further part of your presentation? Okay, moving it back to the board then. All right, so I was reading and I wasn't paying attention to the lights, so if I call you out of order, I apologize. All right, so we'll start with Commissioner Baxter.
Are we only talking about commerce currently and the area that is allowed to be built on?
Yes.
And I'll reserve my comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Marino, you recognized.
Could you go back one slide, please?
Sure.
I liked the statistics on that slide. I wanted to hear more about it. Okay, so I know we constantly ask you what is the worst case scenario, and sometimes that's hard to determine, but I wanted to just see that approximately. So 315 acres with the possibility of 5.82 million square feet, Florida area ratio 0.45, and then another 3.8 million square feet that have a Florida area ratio of 0.3, and the difference of those two being?
Great question. So what I was trying to explain there is that if every property that meets the eligibility requirements came in for that request for Commerce, and they all maxed their site out at 0.45 floor area ratio, that would be an estimate of the maximum square footage that we would see in the tier. What we're seeing with the amendments, it's hard to maximize out to the 0.45, so the average is closer to a 0.3. So that's just giving a more real-life
So
example.
more realistic
of-
is
correct.
3.8 million as
Right,
opposed
so
to
that you could
5.8
consider
million.
The 5.8 would be worst case. What's more realistic and closer to what we're seeing, it would be that 3.88 million.
But in your previous comments, with your 12 notes that are already there because of different FAR ratios, we have talked about setting limits on the floor to area ratio, and realistically, if we do something where it's sort of, if you're in the ag reserve, it's X, if you're close to 441, it's Y, and if you're, east of that, it's Z or whatever. That is what we're talking about today. I'm just
Yes.
trying to make it clear.
Right, so yeah, so if the board, if that's the direction from the board, that yes, we would like to see a range of FAR, so it's not a blanket 0.45 within the tier, and if certain metrics are met, yes, you can get 0.45. If other metrics aren't met, you may cap at 0.3 or 0.15, exactly. And then if that was the board's direction, then staff would do a more detailed analysis of what those metrics should be, and then come back for a transmittal with, the actual staff analysis and detailed report.
I think that's a realistic request. Thank you.
And if I
You
could just,
commit-
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Can I
I'm
just
sorry.
clarify? So there's kind of two discussions on this topic. One is the straight ULDC changes that I'm discussing, and then what Kevin's discussing is initiating an amendment to the comprehensive plan separately. So that would have, I don't know if we needed a motion for the initiation. I can't remember. Do we need a motion for the initiation for the text amendment?
It's been done both ways. If there's consensus for that direction, that's enough.
Okay.
A vote could be taken.
So why don't we do this right now? Because we're getting off in two different discussions. One is what you're asking us to approve, and one is to give direction. So why don't we separate the two for now, and then we'll return to, I think, because otherwise I can see this, we want to take care of what's in front of us, and we can give you direction. I think that would be easier for all of us, okay? So why don't we let's return back to item number 9.
10.
Or 10, sorry, item number 10. And so this is on the categories, and to create the you want to just recap it so everybody knows what's in front of us right now.
Yes, the item for the motion is to have a permission to advertise for the ULDC revisions to implement the Commerce Future Land Use Designation as it currently exists in the plan today. So that's kind of the recap. There's no floor area ratio caps on the zoning districts in the code at all. They were moved to the comp plan several years ago, so any FAR limitation would end up through a subsequent direction on a text amendment to the plan.
Okay, is everybody clear? Yes. Okay. So, Marcy, do you have go ahead.
The first thing, do we want to pass the first motion? First.
Yeah, let's take care of okay, if you don't mind, is that okay? Okay, so we'll come back to you. All right, so this is permission to advertise.
I will make a motion to request permission to act. Oh, sorry.
I will make the motion. Thank you.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Marino to permission to advertise. Do we have a second? We have a second.
Sarah Baxter.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you. We have a second from Commissioner Baxter. Okay, any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 6-0. Now let's go back to our discussion, and Commissioner Woodward.
Okay, yes, thank you. I know I've had some conversations with staff about this, and I just wanted the rest of you to know what my conversations with them were. As far as the FAR, the floor area ratio, we talked about it. I think like some of the industrial parks go as high as 0.85, and we all had 5 applications, I believe, and the floor area ratio was the big question. And so I asked them if we could come up with a formula so that when applicants come in, they can kind of deal with it before it gets to us, so we're not voting on square footage every couple of months. And I have spoken with the Delray Alliance and the Sierra Club, and I let them know that this was something that I was working towards, and let them know 0.15 as it stands right now is unrealistic. 0.45 is what we're looking at right now. 0.3 is what they've been coming in. So I've kind of put it on there, you know, if you would like a seat at the table, you have one right now to have discussions with staff, you're going to have to be realistic with this number. And maybe we do FAR and look at a cap as well, just to kind of manage this, because it's a new designation. We have multiple applications coming out for this right now. And I would like for it to be as clear for staff and the applicants before it gets to us, so, you know, we kind of manage how this is going to happen. And I would appreciate, like you said, west of State Road 7 maybe has a certain number if it's close to a preserve. I mean, there's ways that you guys can kind of work through exactly what's palatable for all concerned parties on this, and that way when they come in, it's very clear, and then when it comes to us, maybe not so contentious. So that was my request, and I would appreciate if they're able to do this.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for staff. We recently approved a number of, commerce, future land use, and projects. So, and that was what, about 1 million square feet out in the Ag Reserve. Is that correct?
So there were 5 for transmittal. 4 of those were transmitted to the state, and then there is one more that will be at Planning Commission this week, and you'll be seeing February 1st. Those 6 projects total, if they maxed out at that 0.45 FAR, would have totaled approximately 2.32 million square feet. But that figure among the 6 is, I don't have the exact number, but it's closer to 1.5 million. So it is a fair bit lower than if it was maxed out. And again, that's because that floor area ratio we're seeing is closer to that point.
So on your slide, though, on the slide that you're showing the potential, did you include what was already what we sent for transmittal?
Yes, yeah, the eligible properties included those seeking the designation as well as those in addition that could seek.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
We are talking about commerce, correct? We're not talking about residential again.
Right.
And I just can't get on board with limiting business. We have so many new homes in residential areas that need to be serviced, and these are mostly mine and Commissioner Sachs's districts that are going to be limited, is it not? Well, Ag Reserve is mostly, I'm not saying all of the Ag
No,
Reserve.
this is only Ag Reserve.
That's what I'm saying.
This is
so-
only for the Ag Reserve.
Right, which is all west. Am I wrong?
West of the Turnpike.
West of the Turnpike. That's what, I guess the point I'm getting at is by restricting, are we trying to loosen or restrict the area?
So right now, as it stands, the floor area ratio maximum is 0.45. What we're discussing today is if there was board direction to potentially have, say, a scale of that. So in certain locations, that maximum floor area ratio may be a lower figure. So not that it wouldn't allow the uses on that site, but at a lower intensity.
I just can't get on board with that because we don't know what's going to come in front of us. There's so many different uses and different businesses that restricting it at this level robs people of their robs businesses of individually applying. And I get it makes more work for us, but it's kind of what we're here for, you know, to take these on a case by case and see what businesses can best suit the area. So I'm really not in favor for restricting that. I think we can decide those as they come.
Yeah, so what you're
to us.
describing would be basically that
This,
first
yes.
bullet where we maintain what we have, but as they're before you as a specific project, you can by condition of approval potentially have a lower
Correct.
floor area ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Sachs, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. And let me help out a little bit in the history of the Ag Reserve, if I could. And I am going to distribute to the new commissioners, the 3 of you, the master development plan that was promulgated in the 1990s. And that is to preserve and protect agriculture in the Agricultural Reserve. And that's why it's called the Agricultural Reserve. So what Commissioner Woodward was talking about is very much on point, because any commercial entities that come out to service the residents of the ag reserve have to be regional to them. For example, and we could see on the Commerce, which is very well taken, Lisa, is that these would be businesses that were not large industrial distribution centers. A large distribution center would be able to take care of the entire county, or at least outside of the ag reserve. That is not allowed by law in the ag reserve. So it's only those businesses that are smaller, such as, and go back, hair salon, nail salons, recreation centers, parks. Distribution centers belong in an area where there's an infrastructure to take care of them, such as close to a port or close to an airport where the freight comes in and it goes to a distribution center and then that goes out to the entire county. So it's important, it's difficult, you're just starting, but it's important to note that this little area, this precious little area of the Ag Reserve, is to promote and preserve agriculture and to have those services that take care of the residents. So if you have a horse business there, you want farriers and you want saddle companies, but you don't want an Amazon distribution center because it's not going to take care of the residents who live there, who should be based in agriculture or those servicing agriculture. So this is and I'll make sure that you all get it in your offices so that you understand that this is a unique area. It's not all of District 5, it's just this little unique area called the Ag Reserve. So Commissioner Woodward's definition of limiting those commercial entities there is well placed for this particular area. And I would certainly support that and would be ready to vote on this motion. Thank you, and I'll help you out with that.
We're just giving, thank you, Commissioner. I believe we're just giving direction today. All right, Commissioner Woodward, you recognize.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to clarify, doing this is not, in my opinion, I'm trying to limit business. I'm more hoping to streamline the process because the clearer we make what the rules are when applicants come in with staff, this could speed up the process as far as if we give the parameters now, when people come in, they can, know I have this many acres, this is where it is, this is what I'm allowed to do. Staff already has, we can just, cut through all of the gray that's out there and kind of give them a very clear definition of what they're allowed to do. And the sooner we do that, then the businesses that would like to open and operate there, I mean, we can streamline that and speed up the process and not have to wait for, zoning meetings and board meetings that we have to keep voting on square footage. So, and my hope in this would be that it would speed it up and just kind of clarify everything so all players know what they're allowed to do.
Thank you. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
I don't think any of us want an Amazon distribution center in the Ag Reserve, absolutely not. What a nice smaller scale, sort of a place to store plumbing equipment, electrical equipment, to store those materials is also needed, even for agriculture itself. I mean, we have farmers out there that need a lot of the equipment, and they're having to drive very far distances just to get them. I do agree. I don't want it overdeveloped. I'm just trying to get clarity. By developing this tier system, will it streamline the process?
So either way, any site-specific request for an amendment to commerce will be coming before the board. So what having a tiered FAR, if that is the approach, what that would help with is maybe curtailing some of the back and forth at a public hearing, because if they're seeking the 0.45 and it's in an area where we all feel that, well, it's adjacent to wetlands or preserve, it's west of State Road 7, 0.45 isn't appropriate, but the plan allows for it, they can make the argument, well, the plan says I can have 0.45, you all can still limit it by condition of approval, obviously, but if we had that tiered approach and it was in that area that we identified that 0.45 isn't appropriate and it's 0.15, that would kind of end that discussion, and it would be, well, this is all you can have, and then there wouldn't be that kind of battle for, well, I want to maximize the FAR. But either
So-
way, it would be coming before the board.
I guess so so back to, it's still coming before us. We still are deciding on it. We are just then limiting based on size. It might not even get to us for us to decide if it's appropriate for that area based on square footage. Is that what we're talking about?
Right, so I'll just use the easiest example. If say, west of State Road 7 was determined to be .15, then that would all that they could apply for. So they couldn't even ask you for the .45 because the plan would limit them to the .15.
And yes, and Commissioner Woodward, that's what I'm getting at, where we don't know what business that could be. It could be really good for that area, but will never reach us because we've already said it before it ever reached us. And either way, it's going to reach us.
If I may, this is a direction for staff to start working on a text amendment. So when Kevin came back, if you initiate this amendment today, he can have more detailed items on that to pick from. So one of them could be, have it on a case-by-case basis, but this direction today to send him to go work on this concept is what is needed. Coming just to do the work, to come back, write a staff report, have a public hearing with the Planning Commission, and then come back to you at a transmittal hearing, and then come back again at an adoption hearing. So the big thing for this discussion is to whether or not you want to direct Kevin to work on a text amendment to the plan. So having a variable FAR by any future land use designation probably is a good idea. For commercial, we don't have that. And I did some research in 2014, intents on commercial, and you'd be surprised with commercial, not industrial, but with commercial, some of the lowest FAR projects, which is a convenience store, a gas station, and a car wash, have the highest trip generation. So sometimes FAR is not always the thing. What floor area ratio means, it's the amount of air-conditioned square footage within your building. So, for example, self-storage is typically high FAR. It's 3 stories, sometimes 4. However, the trip generation for self-storage compared to a fast food restaurant, which has high vehicular turnover, it's not always comparable. But if we initiate this concept today, Kevin can come back with a full staff report, go to the advisory board, develop some ideas, and then you would have 2 public hearings to review what he drafted.
Thank you. And I'm definitely more than willing to let direct staff come to us with something.
Okay. All right, thank you, Commissioner. I am in support of giving staff direction to go out and do your work. I have concerns specifically in regards to the Ag Reserve and how much, and when we're talking about commerce, the commerce use, we're really talking about lot coverage and how much coverage of the land we're going to allow to be covered with structures. So as we get higher lot coverage, it creates potentially more intense uses, and the impacts are greater. And as we know, the voters had given direction years ago that this was an area of the county they wanted to have some limitations in, and that, so I am supportive of it. Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Thank you. For our new members, why don't you give a little recap of why we came up with the Commerce Flu designation anyway? Because in actuality, we wouldn't be having this discussion if there weren't for the Commerce Flu. So we're not trying to minimize anybody's ability to have a business. They didn't have the ability to begin with. So that's why it might be important to know the history of how we got to this point. Now, the floor area ratio is something that's always been in play, but there was never a commerce designation in the Ag Reserve. So people were already limited. We've given them the opportunity to now have that type of business in the Ag Reserve. So if you could give a little bit of a history of how we got the commerce designation in place, maybe then it would be easier to understand what why we're talking about FAR.
Excuse me, and then we have a light on. Is that you?
Yes, and what I was probably going to mirror is exactly what Lisa's going to say. With dealing with the commerce, the reason we came up with this was because it was an all for nothing. So now we've kind of limited to the less intense uses that can go out there, like for instance landscape services, etc., as opposed to scrap yards. So that's kind of why we came up with this commerce use, is to not just have a free-for-all, but have it limited to a certain degree.
Thank you.
And I can give a
You want to do
bit
a
of
history?
and then Lisa she was heavily involved with commerce too. So before we had the commerce designation, there was no policy guidance in the comprehensive plan with respect to industrial in the agricultural reserve tier. So when we would receive a request for industrial, staff was always recommending denial because there was no policy basis for industrial in that area of the county. Some amendments over the years were adopted, some were not, and the discussion kind of turned on, okay, we're still getting requests for it, so maybe we could curtail this a little, focus where the requests can come in and limit it to light industrial uses. And commerce is also a new future land use in the urban-suburban tier, recognizing adjacent to certain types of developments, you may not want heavy industrial, but a light industrial use may be appropriate. I don't know if Lisa, if you wanted to add any.
I think that covers it, because we were in a position where every application for a future land use amendment for industrial, we're recommending denial. So this having that new future land use, no one has commerce today, nobody has it, but by creating a new future land use designation, we were able to create new rules and to narrow the requests when they came in.
But by saying new rules, what we were actually doing was creating an opportunity for people to have a business. So we've opened up that opportunity. So I just want to be clear that we're not trying to keep anybody from doing business. We're actually encouraging people to do business. And this is the legal way we have done it, because we were constantly getting people doing, coming to us saying, we want, 50,000 square feet, but by code you're not allowed. And we have to go by code because that's our law. So, and code is in place, and there is a procedure that we follow to put code in place. So I just want to make sure that the history of how this came about is known. So we are encouraging businesses to do business in the ag reserve or in the suburban tier or the rural tier, and we are trying to listen to everybody that comes to us and we have to adjust. I mean, we're growing. We're 1.5 million people. We have more agriculture than, a lot of other places. And we have 700,000 acres in the Everglades agricultural area. So our job up here is to hear the people that come in front of us when they have a request that is out of bounds. It is up to us to bring them into be realistic. Like Commissioner Woodward said, if we can give them a blueprint when they start, whether we go up or down a little bit on that blueprint is a whole lot easier and less effort than if they come in with, double X over here, but they can really only get Y over here. So Sarah, I don't, Commissioner Baxter, I hope you understand where I'm going with this.
And I've already agreed.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Sachs, you're recognized.
Does Commissioner Baxter have anything more to say? Your light was on?
No, I was just
Okay.
I agree. Let's look at some tier options and move forward.
Excellent. Let's be clear, there was industrial uses in the ag reserve and heavy industrial uses. And we are limiting those to light and commerce, which best suits the needs of the residents of the ag reserve, which is the definition of what type of business should be there. I said before, any business is allowed in this small area has to be to meet the needs of the residents. And yes, agriculture is very important. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't be eating. So it's very, very important. And I think I went along with it at the very beginning. Commerce, it's had a lot of discussion, but I think we're on the right track now. So thank you very much, and I'm glad it's taking the place of industrial, heavy industrial. As Ramsey pointed out, it's something that is zoned so that we can keep it limited to meet the needs of the people of the Ag Reserve. Thank you.
All right, are you clear on your direction?
Yeah, it sounds like there was
Consensus.
our consensus. Yes.
Okay, good. All right, is there anything left on this item to discuss?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so hearing that, we are at the end of our regular agenda, and we are now to comments. County Attorney.
No comments.
Thank you. Zoning Director.
I would like to say, we've talked about land development regulation amendments for a while, and this batch today, this first 3, as soon as we finish these, we're going to keep coming back, hopefully every other month at least, with a new set of ULDC regulations that we'll be updating, streamlining, modifying. We had to focus on these ones because they're comp plan driven, but this is the beginning of this year. We've had last year to focus on hiring staff, so this year we're going to work on more ULDC amendments. So and Happy New Year, everyone. And see you again at the end of the month.
Thank you. Planning Director.
Happy New Year, and you're probably sick of hearing me speak, so I have no other comments.
Okay, thank you. Executive Director.
Yes, Mayor. So Lisa and Wendy are working diligently to thin our code to make things easier and less complicated. So we're limited with staff, but we're working hard, and it makes our life easier when it's easier to get things processed. So they diligently working on getting that done. So I appreciate their work on all of that.
Thank you. Assistant County Administrator.
No comment.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Commissioner comments, and I guess today we'll start on the right side. We'll start with Commissioner Baxter. Any comments?
I just wanted to say thank you to staff for doing all this, going through this, looking at it, working with us. I know we don't always make it easy, but it is greatly appreciated, and thank you to our commissioners that have been here longer than us for their guidance.
Thank you. All right, I'll move over to Commissioner Marino.
I have no comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodward.
I'd just like to say I apologize. I had to leave out early yesterday. After our public comments, we had a lot of that, and hopefully there was some discussion on helping some of these people. I know that we had limits on what we're allowed to do legally, but I'd just like to know that they were heard, and I'm sure everyone here heard them as well, and we'd like to work with the citizens and streamline their processes too. So that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnett.
No other comment except to say thank you very much to all of you for your thorough explanations, learning a lot, and hope to see you all a lot more often. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor Sachs.
Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to everybody. This is going to be an exciting new start, and I welcome our new commissioners. We're going to have fresh air, and I will be giving a little bit of a summary of the requirements of the Agricultural Reserve. I represented most of this area, most of Palm Beach County in the Florida legislature. And I know that each area is particular and special. And I would like to have everybody educated, as everybody, on the nuances of the Agricultural Reserve, which is a very special agricultural area. And I welcome your input, your comments. And yes, Palm Beach County is open for business. That's what's the engine, based on the fact that we are the largest agricultural county in the state, and our number one budget input is from agriculture. So we do want to keep it open and available to the county, to Florida, and to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to thank staff. Thank you for your help today and the work you all do and the folks that you have in your offices. Thank you again for moving forward with trying to streamline our ULDC, and as you know, it's been a priority of mine for a while, and I understood we had some staffing issues, or not issues, but we need to take care of staffing first, and appreciate you moving forward with it. I think everybody, you'll benefit, the residents will benefit, so it's a good thing, and I think it was time for that review. So thank you very much, and with that, I see nothing else. Then this meeting is adjourned.